Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're looking at a massive paradigm shift, and it's hiding literally right in our own backyards. We're going to unpack this fascinating transition from the conventional chemical-heavy lawns that most of us are so used to incredibly resilient biological ones. And the real secret to this shift? It doesn't come from some high-tech laboratory. It actually comes from understanding the invisible life right beneath your feet.
Okay, let's dive into this. $200. That number right there, that's what the average American homeowner is dropping every single season on synthetic lawn fertilizer for just a quarter-acre yard. We buy it, we spread it, the grass gets incredibly green, and then, well, by August, it all fades back to yellow. It's this super frustrating, recurring cycle that leaves us with chemically dependent grass, shallow root systems, and completely exhausted soil. But it really doesn't have to be this way. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The chemical lawn trap. 2. The 5-ingredient pantry tonic. 3. Unlocking the soil microbiome. 4. Tonic v molasses drench. 5. Knowing your grass type. And finally, 6. The finishing touches.
Let's get right into Section 1, the chemical lawn trap, breaking the synthetic cycle.
To figure out how to fix our lawns, we kind of have to see how we got trapped in the first place, right? The story here is absolutely wild, and it traces all the way back to 1913. That's when two chemists, Fritz Haber and Carl Bosch, figured out how to pull nitrogen straight from the air to make industrial ammonia. Fast forward to the end of the World Wars. You got these massive factories built to create munitions, and suddenly they needed a new peacetime market. So they pivoted to agricultural fertilizer. By the 1950s, this idea just exploded into American backyards. The emerald lawn became the ultimate symbol of post-war homeownership. And companies quickly realized a brilliant, if exhausting, business model. You only sell a bag of compost once, but you can sell a bag of synthetic feed every 6 weeks, forever. But here's what that recurring business model is actually doing to your yard. When you drop that synthetic granular fertilizer, the grass blades absorb those salt-based nutrients through these tiny pores called stomata. It's essentially like giving your grass a shot of steroids. You get this massive visible burst of green almost instantly. But beneath the surface, a total disaster is unfolding. Those salts literally pull moisture right out of the surrounding soil. And the roots, well, they have absolutely no reason to dig deep because all the junk food is sitting right at the top. The result is dangerously shallow roots and soil that becomes dense, compacted, and completely devoid of earthworms. Moving right along to Section 2, the 5-ingredient pantry tonic, Jerry Baker's 50-year-old secret. So while the fertilizer industry was busy locking down the front yard, gardening author Jerry Baker was out in his shed brewing up something completely different. Honestly, it sounds like a bad cocktail. You've got 1 can of regular non-diet soda, 1 can of regular beer, half a cup of basic liquid dish soap, just make sure it has no antibacterial additives, half a cup of household ammonia, and half a cup of mouthwash. But guys, it works miracles. You put these into a hose end sprayer set to about 20 gallons of water flow. The rush of the water dilutes this concentrate hundreds of times before it ever even touches a blade of grass. That means it's completely safe and it will never burn your lawn. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the precise chemistry behind these everyday household items. Notice how the dish soap and the mouthwash act as surfactants. As you can see, they break the surface tension of the water. This is absolutely critical. It allows the tonic to penetrate deep into hard, compacted soil instead of just rolling right off into the street. Meanwhile, that half cup of ammonia provides a tiny 6-gram spark of nitrogen. It's just enough to give a quick chemical signal to the soil without completely overwhelming it.
Okay, Section 3, Unlocking the Soil Microbiome, the Invisible Workforce.
So what about that soda and the beer? Well, they're fueling a hidden biological engine. 1 billion. Think about that number. That is actually the amount of bacteria living inside just a single teaspoon of healthy lawn soil. Plus, that 1 teaspoon also contains miles of microscopic fungal threads so incredibly fine the human eye can't even see them. This is your invisible workforce, and they're the absolute secret to a thriving lawn.
And that brings us to the golden rule of biological lawn care. You aren't feeding the grass, you're feeding the microbes. See, out in nature, there's this brilliant biological trade happening every single day. Through photosynthesis, grass creates liquid sugars and actually pushes 5 to 30% of those sugars down into the soil specifically to feed the microbes. In exchange, those microbes act like tiny miners. They break down thatch, aerate the soil, and unlock trapped phosphorus, water, and nitrogen, delivering it all right back to the grass entirely for free. Heavy synthetic chemicals, they wipe this workforce out. But the soda and beer in our tonic, They feed them.
Next up, Section 4, Tonic V's Molasses Drench, the math nobody runs.
So the crucial point here is the math. When you calculate the actual sugar load of that pantry tonic across an average yard, it delivers about 1/10 of a gram of sugar per square meter. It's really just a light spark. But if you mix 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses per gallon of water, you deliver 3.5 grams of sugar per square meter. That is 34 times more microbial fuel. So the tonic is just a light snack, right? But the molasses drench, that is the heavy meal.
And both of these definitely have a vital place in your lawn care routine. Think of the pantry tonic as your steady drumbeat. You spray it quickly with a hose end sprayer every 3 weeks during the active growing season, just to keep those microbes awake and happy. Conversely, the molasses drench is your heavy lifter. You soak it slowly into the soil maybe 2 or 3 times a season, like early spring to wake the soil up or late fall to prep it for winter. It essentially rebuilds the whole engine.
All right, Section 5, knowing your grass type, the missing variable.
Before you start spraying literally anything on your lawn, you've got to know your grass family, because timing is absolutely everything here. Grass in America is basically split into 2 main families. On the left, we've got cool season grasses, like Kentucky bluegrass and fescue. These thrive in northern states. They peak in the spring and especially in the fall, and they actually stay green during the first frost. On the right, we have warm season grasses, like Bermuda and St. Augustine, dominating the south. They peak in the sweltering heat of midsummer and turn distinctly brown when frost hits. You only want to feed the soil microbes when your specific type of grass is actively pushing roots. Spraying the sugar tonic on dormant grass? Yeah, that's just a total waste of good sugar.
Finally, Section 6, the finishing touches, zero-cost habits, and the iron secret.
And this brilliantly illustrates how, once your biology is really thriving, a few professional tricks can make your lawn completely outshine the rest of the block. For instance, a lot of American soils are highly alkaline, which chemically locks up the iron in the ground. When grass lacks iron, it looks pale green, even if it has plenty of nitrogen. Now, golf course superintendents know that adding more synthetic nitrogen just forces the grass to grow wildly without actually fixing the color. Instead, they use a foliar spray of chelated liquid iron. The word chelated just means the iron is wrapped in an organic molecule, allowing the grass blades to absorb it instantly, bypassing the soil entirely. You get this magnificent emerald color in 24 hours without forcing all that extra mowing. Just be careful, because it will absolutely stain your driveway.
Beyond the sprays, there are 2 completely free habits you've got to adopt to really support this microbiome. Step 1, follow the 1/3 rule. Never, ever cut more than 1/3 of the grass blade off in a single mowing. Taller grass naturally shades the root system to retain moisture, and it literally crowds out weed seeds so they can't even germinate. Step 2, recycle your grass clippings. Seriously, do not bag them. Leaving your clippings on the yard returns 25% of the lawn's annual nitrogen demand back to the soil for free. And no, clippings do not cause thatch. That is a total myth. Microbes break those clippings down in just a week or 2.
So the value here is just incredible. When you finally step away from the chemical trap and embrace a biological lawn, your total seasonal cost plummets to under $30. And the time investment? Less than 30 minutes per application. You end up with this beautiful, deeply resilient yard that's going to easily outlast those chemically fed yards next door. And you do it with barely any money and hardly any time. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When you look out at your yard this weekend, I really want you to ask yourself, are you just feeding the grass on the surface, or are you finally ready to feed the foundation? Try this approach, nurture that unseen life beneath your feet, and just watch how powerfully nature responds. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.